Starting next month, your paycheck goes into my account, Adrian said, his tone casual, like he was discussing the weather, not my freedom. The morning light filtered through the window, catching dust on the kitchen tiles. My hands were still wet from washing dishes. He sat at my table, lifting my chipped lighthouse mug with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. You don't need it anyway, he added, sipping the last of my coffee. I didn't argue, I just nodded. Once. Quietly. Not in agreement. In decision. That night they arrived as always. 7 sharp, laughter spilling through the door before I even heard the key turn. But when the door opened, the laughter died. The house was bare. No sofa, no rug, no television glow, just a single harbor blue table and 2 empty chairs. Adrian froze. Mom, where's everything? I looked up from the manila folder in front of me, the only thing left in the room that still belonged to me. You said you'd handle my money, I said softly, my voice steady against the silence. So I started learning what it feels like to have nothing. My name is Leela Monroe, 66 years old, born and still anchored in Port Huron, Maine, where the sea keeps secrets better than people do. I spent 30 years as a school treasurer, balancing everyone's budgets except my own. I believed order was safety, that if I kept the numbers right, life would stay kind. It didn't. They called me dependable, disciplined, the woman who never asked for help. I wore those words like armor, until they became a cage. My son, Adrian, learned early that I'd never say no. To him, generosity wasn't love, it was permission. And the more I gave, the smaller I became. But before I tell you what happened the night he tried to take it all, the savings, the house, the dignity I built from nothing, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from tonight? Tell me in the comments below. And if you've ever been made to feel small for saying no, like the story, share it, and subscribe to Beyond the Years. Because this isn't a story about money. It's about value, the kind that doesn't fit on a bank statement. Some debts aren't measured in dollars. Some take your name, your peace, your quiet. But tonight I'm here to tell you how I finally balanced the books and found myself in the margins. The clock struck 7, right on schedule. Their car door slammed outside, followed by laughter, loud and hollow, spilling into the quiet like cheap perfume. The key turned, the copy Adrian had kept just in case. When the door opened, the sound of their voices faltered, replaced by the echo of emptiness. No couch, no framed photos, no warmth, just bare walls, a single harbor blue table, 2 chairs, and the folder that waited like a mirror. Neither of them wanted to face. Mom, where's everything? Adrian asked, scanning the room, confusion clouding his practiced charm. Behind him, Sienna, his wife, clutched her designer purse, her tone sharp enough to slice through the air. What is this? Where's dinner? I looked up slowly, steady, unflinching. I sold some things, needed the cash. Adrian's jaw tightened. You didn't even ask me first. How are we supposed to relax here? I let his words hang in the air. Relax, I repeated softly. That's an expensive word. He took a step forward. You're acting irrational, Mom. This isn't you. I smiled faintly, a tired, knowing smile. No, Adrian, this is me. You just forgot what that looked like. Silence fell. Even the wind outside held still. For the first time in years, I wasn't the quiet mother waiting for approval. I was the storm he didn't see coming. Before all this, life used to have rhythm. The soft hum of early mornings, coffee at 6, the sound of seagulls tangled with the rustle of school papers. I used to believe purpose was enough, that if I showed up, kept things steady, the world would stay kind. After Robert left, it was just Adrian and me in that small, wind-bitten house near the docks. He was 5, all knees and questions. I promised him he'd never go without. I kept that promise, even when it cost me everything. I taught summer school, took extra bookkeeping shifts at the cannery, skipped dinners to make tuition deadlines. When he wanted an art set, I sold my mother's piano. When he wanted a car, I took out a second loan. When he dreamed of college, I co-signed away my piece. I told myself it wasn't sacrifice, it was love. But love given without boundary isn't kindness, it's erosion. Years later, when he came back with polished shoes and distant eyes, I didn't recognize the man he'd become. He'd stopped calling me Mom. I was Sylvia now, efficient, replaceable. Friday dinners became the only routine left between us. I made sure everything was perfect. Clean plates, warm lights, small talk that didn't bruise. I thought peace meant keeping quiet. I didn't know silence was how love starts dying. The folder sat between us like an open wound, thin, unassuming, but heavier than any truth spoken out loud. Adrian reached for it, his hand steady, confident, the way men move when they believe the world will always yield. He flipped the first page and froze. Bank statements, withdrawal slips, notes in my neat treasurer's handwriting, dates circled in red. The numbers didn't lie. I watched him read, his eyes darting from line to line, his breath thinning with every turn. He looked younger suddenly, like the boy who once brought me seashells after school, swearing he'd buy me a house one day. "What is this supposed to mean?" he asked, voice flat, defensive. "It means, I know," I said simply. Behind him, Sienna crossed her arms, perfume sharp as vinegar. "You're overreacting, Leela. He was just trying to help. By opening credit accounts in my name, by signing my signature better than I ever could." Silence. Even the refrigerator hum seemed to hesitate. Adrian slammed the folder shut. "You don't understand finances, Mom. I was protecting you." "From what?" I whispered. "From ownership?" He tried to meet my gaze, but couldn't. The mask cracked, pride slipping into panic. "Sit down," I said quietly, "because this is the first time we're going to balance things properly." For the first time in decades, I wasn't the woman keeping peace at any cost. I was the accountant of my own worth, and the audit had just begun. The next morning, the fog hung low over Port Huron, blurring the harbor into a watercolor of grays. The gulls circled above the pier, restless, like they knew something in me had shifted. I walked to the bank the same way I'd walked to work for 30 years. Measured steps, steady breath. But this time, I wasn't there to deposit or balance anyone else's ledger. I was there to measure the truth. Inside, the air smelled of paper and old carpet. The young teller smiled politely, unaware she was about to hand me the last piece of my son's deceit. "Can you print my recent transactions? All of them, please?" Her keyboard clattered softly, a metronome to my heartbeat. The printer whirred, spitting out sheets of numbers that would change everything. Groceries, gas, utilities. And then, 3 withdrawals, different branches, cash amounts just shy of suspicion. each one stamped with my name and initials I didn't write. Beneath the last line, authorization, Adrian Monroe. My chest went hollow. I traced the ink with my finger, careful, deliberate, as though touching proof would make it less true. "Can I file a claim?" the teller asked gently. I shook my head. Not yet. Because this wasn't about reclaiming stolen money. It was about reclaiming something he didn't even know he'd taken. My autonomy, my quiet, my choice. I folded the papers, slid them into my bag, and stepped back into the cold air. The fog hadn't lifted, but something inside me had. For the first time, I was done waiting for apologies. I was ready for accountability. The sign on the door still read Hector Ruiz, attorney at law, though the paint was beginning to peel. The office sat above the old bait shop by the wharf, a place that smelled faintly of salt, cedar, and ink. I hadn't seen Hector in years, not since our children played together behind the schoolyard fence. He looked up from his desk when I entered, surprise softening into understanding. "Lila Monroe," he said, voice warm but measured. "You look like a woman who's come to settle something more than paperwork." I placed the manila folder on his desk. "You could say that." He opened it, scanning every page with that quiet precision I remembered. Withdrawals, signatures, dates. Then he stopped at one document and leaned back. "Power of attorney?" he murmured. "If you'd signed this, he could have drained you completely." I nodded once. He almost did. Hector closed the folder, fingers tapping the brass edge of his lamp. "What are you hoping for here, Lila? Revenge?" I met his gaze. "No. Record." The word lingered between us, simple, unshakable. "Then we'll do it right," he said finally, pulling a legal pad closer. "Affidavit of forgery. Asset protection order. Account freeze. You'll get everything documented. Every lie in ink." The pen scratched across the paper, line by line, reclaiming what my silence had once surrendered. As he handed me the form to sign, I realized my name no longer trembled beside the word victim. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being managed. I was setting the terms. I set the table just as I used to. Candlelight, linen napkins, roasted chicken with rosemary, his favorite since childhood. His silverware glimmered under the soft glow. Only 2 plates this time. No warmth, no small talk, just purpose. They arrived at 7, right on cue. Adrian's knock was confident, almost cheerful, a man certain of his authority. Sienna walked in first, her perfume sharp, her smile thin. "Well," she said, scanning the room, "it looks almost normal again." Adrian set a folder on the table, the same brand as mine. "I brought the paperwork," he said, as if we were discussing routine maintenance, not betrayal. I nodded calmly, serving dinner, watching his fork move as if he were performing civility. "You've really thought this through," I said. "I'm protecting you, Mom," he replied, his tone polished, confident. "Of course," I said softly, "and I've been protecting myself too." He didn't look up. I reached into the side drawer and pulled out my folder, thicker now, with legal stamps along the edge. I placed it next to his. Already signed, by the court. Affidavit of forgery, asset freeze, filed 3 days ago. His hand froze mid-air. Sienna's smile vanished. The silence stretched between us, wide as the harbor outside. Adrian's voice cracked. You reported me? No, I said quietly. I recorded you. The candlelight flickered, its flame steady against the draft. For years, I'd served him dinner. Tonight, I served him consequence. The call came on a gray Thursday morning. The sea outside was restless, slapping against the rocks as if it too had something to say. Hector's voice came through steady. They've agreed to repay everything. Principal, interest, legal costs. They just want to settle quietly. Quietly, I repeated, staring at the steam curling from my tea. That's how they took it. So you'll accept? He asked. With one condition, I said. It has to be in writing. Fraud. Not misunderstanding, not miscommunication. Fraud. There was a pause. The sound of his pen tapping the desk. You want it on record. No, I said softly. I want it remembered. When the envelope arrived, it felt heavier than the money it promised. I sat at my kitchen table, the one thing I hadn't sold, and opened it slowly. The words stared back. Adrian Monroe acknowledges his unauthorized use of funds constituting financial fraud. The ink gleamly under the lamp's light. Final, undeniable. I picked up my pen and signed my name below his. My hand didn't shake. Years of obedience condensed into one signature, my own kind of freedom. Outside, the fog lifted from the harbor, revealing a slice of morning sun. The gulls cried overhead, not mournful this time, but clear, like something had finally been set right. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel owned. I felt documented. The settlement cleared 2 weeks later. The money arrived without ceremony, just numbers blinking on a screen, sterile and final. I didn't celebrate. Some victories aren't loud. They breathe in silence. I sold the house soon after. The harbor home that once held every version of my sacrifice went to a young couple who loved its creaking floors. They smiled and promised to keep its soul intact. I wished them luck. Souls are expensive to maintain. I moved to a small cottage near Lighthouse Point, where the cliffs met the Atlantic. No sofa this time, no framed photographs, just a narrow bed, a blue kettle, and a window that faced the sea. The air tasted clean, like something unburdened. Each morning, I walked along the rocky path, tracing the tide's edge with bare hands. The ocean never apologized for what it took. It just kept moving, honest and endless. I learned from that. Hector still calls sometimes. His voice leaves the same message each time. Please, Mom, let's talk. I don't answer. Some conversations require silence to be understood. On the 1st of every month, the restitution arrives. His signature beneath mine, proof that even remorse can come stamped and scheduled. I brew tea, open the window, and let the wind move through the curtains. The house hums softly, alive. I am no longer the woman who waited for kindness. I am the woman who chose herself. The sea roars below, unbroken, unowned. And somewhere between the waves and the quiet, I finally belong to no one but me.